Hey guys, welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Wednesday, February the 27th. 26th? I think it is 26th. February the 26th, 2025. Getting ahead of myself there. And beautiful morning here in the Macedon Ranges. We'll have to cut it short today because it's actually quite warm, and Neil does tend to struggle a little bit in the heat. And we're starting just about half an hour later than what we normally would this morning as well. Neil let me sleep in a little bit this morning. Big news yesterday. A couple of things actually that I want to discuss today. But yesterday, the official announcement of Tim Tszyu and Joey Spencer, April 6th at the Newcastle or Zoo Castle Entertainment Centre. Come here, man. Got a truck wanting to get past. Neil wants to do his business. He doesn't stop for nobody. Oh, Jesus. Oh, the fair income, this dog. He just doesn't fear even trucks. Anyway, so I had the press conference yesterday. I think the undercard will be announced today. They did have one undercard fight announced. But, yeah, Tim Tszyu, Joey Spencer. Now, I actually liked what I heard from Tim Tszyu yesterday. I really did. I thought he spoke very, very well. I'm really glad that he has, and his team, have really embraced what happened against Murtazaliev. And no matter what happens going forward with his career, I think they've made the right call to firstly address that, yes, it did happen. Yes, it was a devastating loss. And yes, he has to change things if he's going to be successful going forward. And probably the main thing was him saying that he'd watched the fight, which I thought was good, as hard as it would have been. And it would have been extremely difficult. Because you've got to remember, guys like Tim Tszyu, all elite athletes, have got massive egos, massive chips on their shoulders, and that's what makes them successful. Yes, they've got ability and talent and everything else, but that's what drives them and makes them better than other athletes around them. So it would have been extremely painful for him to sit there and watch it, but I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did, and I think it will make him a better fighter. Again, there's no guarantees he'll get back to where he was, but at least it's the right path. And he said he watched all the Murtazaliev fight. He had to sit through it, and now they've made some subtle changes to the dynamic of the team. And one is that, a dog coming up here, you can probably hear that. The first one being is they do not, under any circumstances, discuss future opponents or future paydays or anything like that. They look firmly and squarely at the road ahead, the fighter in front of them. And I wouldn't have thought you would probably have to say that, because I thought it would just be common knowledge. But it wasn't all Tim's fault in this. Yes, he's been guilty in the past of maybe mentioning Canelos and Crawfords and Charlos and all these types of guys. But, come on, these bloody dogs, fair dinkum. We'll just get past these dogs and we'll proceed. But yeah, while he has, come here, man, not going down there. Sorry, guys, there's a little bit going on this morning. Anyway, must be the heat getting to everyone this morning, truck drivers and dogs and everything like that. But look, we all know he's probably been guilty in the past. He obviously spoke about moving to America, and then he was talking about those big fights and all that sort of stuff. But not just him, it's his team, and not just even his team. It's you know, I've been pretty vocal about the Australian media, and even yesterday I had to stop myself from throwing up a few times to the way they speak. Now, I know they've got to build it up and everything like that. Peter Bedell and what's the other guy that was on there with him as well. It's like, Jesus, do I have to sit through this before I get to the press conference? Fair income. Anyway, that's a different story. Now we've got golfers that are hitting golf balls in our direction. There's the golf course right beside me. But look, as I said, I really liked the way he spoke. The fact that, yeah, they're not going to look ahead, they're going to focus purely on the opponent in front of them is the first step. Now they've got to get in there and get the job done. And Joey Spencer's not going to be a pushover, make no mistake, but I've said it a few times, I think he's the perfect opponent for Tim. Now he comes to have a go. He has a real crack, does Joey Spencer. But he's pretty limited in overall skill, defence, and I think that's why he's been chosen. Look, he's not ranked by any of the organisations, but that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. The fact that he's not ranked, because this is not about rankings for Tim. This is about getting a win under his belt against the right type of opponent and getting back on the win, or in the winner's circle. And the only thing I didn't like yesterday, as I said, with the Australian media, is that already the fact that he's back, they couldn't help themselves about just talking about some future things with Tim Tszyu, and I just hope that pressure doesn't start to build again. But by all accounts, look, Glenn Jennings is one of the best managers in the business. I think he'll keep him grounded. The other thing which was brought up was that another point in the changing direction, I suppose, is that Kostya, his dad, is officially barred from boxing events. I'm not sure whether that's a little bit of overkill, but having said that, I wasn't there in Florida. I didn't see the effect that he had. And Glenn sort of said that while they loved having Kostya in camp and they're all really close, the Tszyu camp is a very, very tight-knit sort of family, I suppose, and bringing Kostya into the mix, even though he is family, literally family, I think the whole balance was upset, and Kostya can be very, very overpowering, I suppose. He's got a massive presence about him, and I think the fact that he came in might have just unbalanced everything and just maybe put a little bit extra pressure on Tim. Look, again, without being there, I don't necessarily buy that it had anything to do with the fight itself, because Tim went out there, he was careless, he got caught, he got knocked out, end of story. Now, whether he was maybe in the back of his mind wanting to impress his dad, I don't know. I would have thought that at that level and the amount of fights that Tim has had and the experience he's had, that wouldn't be the case. A 30-year-old man who's a former world champion in a world title fight would want to impress his dad. I don't see it, but you never know. Every person has a different relationship with their parents, and they don't get much bigger in stature than Kostya Tszyu, do they? So who knows with that one? But he has been barred from proceedings, has Kostya Tszyu, which, look, as I said, that's their call. But geez, I'll tell you what though, George Rose, the only thing he was missing yesterday was a Don King wig. Fair dinkum, this guy, he's gotten, and I really like George, don't get me wrong, but geez, he's become the ultimate sort of promoter, hasn't he? Snake oil salesman almost. The way he talked the event up and the fight up. And I know he's got to do it, by the way, and he's trying to get the fans and everyone excited about the return of Tim Tszyu. But I just hope that people that aren't maybe familiar with the Joey Spencers of the world and the way all this sort of stuff works don't then have unrealistic expectations on Tim again when he beats Joey Spencer, based on the build-up from George Rose. Because I tell you what, after he'd finished, even I believed that Joey Spencer would beat Canelo Alvarez. Fair dinkum, he laid it on pretty thick, but I understand he's got to do it. I understand, and again, he's a good guy, and he's done really good things for Aussie boxing. But next time, George, just go the whole way, mate, and get the Don King wig, because it would suit you. On the undercard, one fight was announced. Cohen Mazudia will fight Dan Hill. So that should be a half-decent scrap. I'm not sure it's going to be, one of those biggest fights of the year. Dan Hill, solid guy, good, tough fighter. Cohen Mazudia, of course, had that Fight of the Year candidate last year with Nikita. So it'll be entertaining, but I don't think it really has any sort of bearing on anything other than maybe Australian level sort of stuff, but a good start anyway. Actually, I think Brendan Grush was the other one they said was going to be on the undercard. So in my opinion, the best fight to put on that undercard would have been Isaac Harvin and Andrei Mikhailovich. Now, there's a fight that we would all look at and go, wow, what a way to, for Tim to come back with a big double header. But anyway, that's, I think No Limit know that we're all going to pay for the pay-per-view no matter what or who is on the undercard. So I don't think they're too stressed about that. Everyone will be tuning in for Tim, and maybe it's a waste of spending some big money on a fight like Hardman and Mikhailovich. But that would, for me, would have been the ideal main support to that card. But look, it is good to have Tim back. Just the excitement that it generated yesterday, I thought it was really good. Tim Tszyu, what do you think? Do you think he's overrated or not, or he can get back, or whatever it might be? Geez, he's great for Australian boxing. He really is. Just the buzz yesterday, everyone was sort of talking about Tim Tszyu's back, and again, while I'm a little bit concerned that it raises the expectation levels to an unrealistic level, I still think it's great to have him back, and they keep everyone nice and balanced. I think that what they need to do actually is when, maybe fight week or even 2 weeks out from the fight, they need to get Peter Bedell a minder, I think, just to calm his levels. I'm a bit worried about the old bloke. Well, he's not old, is he? But I'm a bit worried about his health, the blood pressure and the excitement levels. Get a little bit excited when he starts talking about Tim Tszyu, doesn't it? So good on Peter. He's doing his bit. But yeah, my thoughts of the Australian boxing media anyway. So some other news. And I didn't mention it yesterday. Well, I didn't actually see it, to be honest. I had a few people send it to me. But if you didn't see, after Jason Maloney's fight with Tenshin Nasukawa, the post-fight press conference, and Jason spoke, I thought, really well. Of course, he's going to get knockers out there because he said he thought he won the fight and he fought well and for all different reasons. Well, that's Jason's call. But again, with all the as they say, the keyboard warriors out there got a little bit stuck into Jason. These are Aussie fans too, by the way. But anyway, it is what it is. But Jason, I thought, spoke very, very well. And then they put on Don Majeski. Now, if you're not familiar with Don Majeski, he was a major player back in sort of the 80s, maybe even 90s. I've met him a couple of times when I've been overseas with the boys, and he was a big part of working with Bill Morty back in the day when Bill Morty was the biggest promoter in Australia. Obviously took care of Jeff Fennick, Costa Tszyu, Jeff Harding. Major player was Bill Morty, the man. And Don Majeski, I think, was his US agent, I think it was, and he played a massive part and a really, really good guy. And again, I spoke to him a few times overseas. Well, so he was the one that took the microphone, because a few people said, who is this guy and why is he up there talking? Well, that's why. He's a real advisor, mentor to the team. And I'm not quite sure, I think Angelo Hyder, of course, probably maybe through his Jeff Fennick days, got to know Don Majeski, and he's been part of the team for a while. But anyway, he took the microphone and commented that, or made the opinion that the scoring system in boxing is not right. And what he meant by that, he said, at the moment we have obviously a 10-10 round, which is even. We have a 10-9 round, which is one wins 10 or gets 10, the other gets 9, 10-8 for a knockdown, 10-7 usually for 2 knockdowns, 10-6. Well, if it gets to 10-6, it probably should be stopped. But what he said was, there's no grey areas. And the more I looked at it, when I first saw it, I went, oh, geez, okay, yeah, all right, that's a little bit of an odd thing to say at a post-fight press conference. But I had probably 3, 4, 5 people send it to me yesterday asking my opinion. And I think he's got a point. I really do. You look at it. Look, even the fight, even that fight on Monday night, even take that as an example. Now, you've got Tenshin Nasukawa won many close rounds, so it's a 10-9 round, okay? Jason won a few rounds, 10-9 rounds. But what we don't take into account is, say, the 6th round, where Jason Maloney almost dropped Nasukawa. His glove was like a centimetre away from the ring apron, and then proceeded to pretty much batter Nasukawa for the remainder of the 6th round. Well, guess what? It's still a 10-9 round. This is the problem, and I don't mind it. I like where he was going with it, and I think it's worth consideration. We look back to the Jeff Horn Manny Pacquiao fight, a lot of close rounds in that as well. The 9th round, Manny Pacquiao almost had Jeff Horn out and gone and knocked down. That was still a 10-9 round, and it scored the same as those really close rounds. And that's where I think Don Majeski has a real point. You're going to fight or win a round in a very, very close way. And there's lots of rounds even with Bivol and Better Beeve the other day. We're looking at, geez, which way are we going to score this? This is almost impossible to work out which way, to score it. But you still score a 10-9 round. That is scored the same as someone that absolutely dominates a round. And that's probably where it's wrong. So I think whether they do it so that and it will take a lot of education, by the way, to get the judges to change the way they judge. But let's just say it's still a 10-point must system. Okay, you got a 10-10, which is an even round, which is pretty rare. You don't get a lot of even rounds. I myself never score a round even. I find a way to give it to one fighter or another because I don't like draws. But 10-9, close round, could go either way. Just a general boxer outboxes the other guy at 10-9 round. But in the case of the other night, that where Jason had Nasukawa almost down and battered him for the whole round, I do agree that there needs to be that next step down where the judges do score it as 10-8. Use that as a 10-8 round. Now, I don't agree with Don when he went right down to 10-5s, but I do agree that in an instance like the other night, at that Jason and Nasukawa, there should be the provision for the judges to score that 10-8. Okay, if there's a knockdown, maybe that's 10-7. 2 knockdowns, 10-6. And if it gets to 10-5, well, it probably should be over. But I think that would make fights a little bit more judgeable, if that's the word, where it gives the, or maybe they do it where they increase the amount of points. Maybe it's a 12-point must system, you know, and it gives them the ability, Jesus, Neil, where are you taking me there? Gives them the ability to score those really, really dominant rounds, 10-8 or 10-7, whatever it might be, because I just think that that's sort of fair. You can't have you can't have judges scoring a round, a close round, the same as what they do, an absolutely dominating round. And just because there's not a knockdown, they still score at a 10-9. I don't know. What do you guys think? But I think it has merit. I really do. And they made a very, very, very good point. And I must admit, I hadn't even given it a thought until I watched it yesterday, and a few people saying, what's this crazy old guy on about? Well, I watched it, and I think the crazy old guy has a really, really good point. I really do. So who knows? Maybe in this world with Turki Al-Sheikh pretty much deciding what happens in boxing, maybe the judging system could be looked at. Speaking of Turki Al-Sheikh, he has not announced, but not officially anyway, but sort of let slip the fights he would like for Canelo Alvarez. Come on, buddy, we've got to go this way. Of course, we know he's fighting William Skull in May. He's fighting Terence Crawford in September, but he wants Canelo to fight the winner of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. And for all the credits, I think Turki Al-Sheikh's got as far as, you know, signing Canelo and these other fights, please, no, please. First of all, you've got two guys who've never won a big fight between them. Secondly, you've got Conor Benn is a welterweight. So, geez, Canelo Alvarez is getting stick for fighting the number, well, arguably 1, 2, 3 pound for pound fighter in the world, Terence Crawford, who's coming up from 154. And you've got him potentially fighting Conor Benn, who is a fringe contender coming up from welterweight. How's that going to go down? And Chris Eubank Jr. has lost every big fight that he's ever been in, more name rather than substance, and they're talking about him earning, quote unquote, the shot with Canelo. So I hope they don't go down that route, because I just think that's wrong. And neither one of those guys, even if one of the other pulverizes the other in the first round, do not deserve world title fights. The other interesting one was with the Dmitry Bivol situation. He said that he would like 3 potential opponents, of course. The rematch with Beterbiev, the fight with Benavidez, or the rematch with Canelo. And Canelo was actually quoted as well as saying that he had all sorts of ailments when he lost to Bivol. I don't like hearing fighters say that. I really don't. Just cop the loss. There's nothing wrong with losing a fight. And I was disappointed to hear that Canelo said he had a sore hand and he had what did he say? He had a rib injury or something like that. I don't like to hear it, mate. You were flogged by a better fighter on the night. And I'm a massive Canelo fan, as you know, but he was dominated by Bivol, and nothing that he did and nothing that he will do, in my opinion, will stop Bivol continuing to beat Canelo based on styles. So I'm disappointed to hear that. But Turkey, yeah, has maybe put it out there that with Bivol, it'll be Beterbiev rematch, Benavidez or Canelo. Now, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you would think straight off the bat that it would be Beterbiev, which I think I'd be leaning towards if I had to put a bet on it. But geez, it's also a really good time for Bivol versus Benavidez, but it's also a great time for Bivol versus Canelo. You would think that obviously with Canelo won't be fighting until May next year, that the Bivol one would be the least likely to happen. So I'm sort of thinking that it might be. So obviously we'll have Canelo and Crawford in September. We'll probably have Bivol and Better Beav later in the year, and the May fight looks like the one that will happen. It'll probably be Bivol and Canelo in May next year. So, and then where does that leave Benavidez? Well, let's hope it is a move up to cruiserweight to fight Jai Pattaya, or maybe even Zurdo Ramirez. We'll see. Actually, having just discussed Bivol as well, there was talk that he might even put him up to cruiserweight to fight Pattaya. So I think that would be a pretty dangerous fight for Dmitry Bivol. Putting on 25 pounds, as elite as he is, I think that would be a jump too far. And I back Jai Pattaya to beat Bivol at cruiserweight, just like I would have him to beat Benavidez and Canelo, whoever they want to throw at Jai Pattaya coming up in weight. I think he beats them all. So, and then he moves up to heavyweight after that. Let's see. But guys, that is going to do it for today. I'm going to get some work done and get this little fella home. So guys, have a great day, and we'll catch you tomorrow.